How's it going, boys? Let me get started here. Hope everybody's having a good night. Wild day in the markets today, but it's what we love. It's what we come here to do, right? So let's get started here. Got a bit to go over tonight. So main topics obviously are going to be markets rising on Powell's inflation comments. Powell says inflation easing but warns of reversal. Talk a little bit about Microsoft with the chat GPT technology, how that's kind of affecting things around it. Take a look at the S&P 500 top and bottom performers today. And then, of course, we'll dive into our overall market recap, and we'll touch on a little bit what we're watching here overnight, and then into the pre-market tomorrow. So take a look at what went on with Powell here first off the bat. Obviously, we saw a few things here where, you know, the interview was a little bit aggravating for some of what we were expecting to hear, but they did get some decent stuff out there that I can't be we can't be too we knew it was going to be a bunch of softball questions and it was going to be something like this, but that's what happens. But basically what we want to see here, so just as we thought the Fed was behind us last week, Powell's interview today sent volatility surging, very similar to last week's official Fed policy announcement. And those stocks were volatile today. They closed up at the highs of the day, along with a strong rally in oil and the energy sector. So in tonight's video, we will take a look at just how the market advanced after bouncing between gains and losses, following comments from Powell suggesting that inflation is easing, but that policymakers would hike interest rates more if signs pointed to higher prices. Take a look at the bond yields, as they also had some sizable swinging, initially sinking on Powell's comments before reversing course. Of course, one of the biggest stories today that we'll glance through, like I said above, is Microsoft, which led the Dow higher as they announced they will be using technology from ChatGPT AI in its search engine. We'll compare this against China's largest search engine, Baidu, as they also said they are ready to unveil its own challenger to ChatGPT. And then we will also take a look at the best and worst performers and big picture recap, and then we go into there. So Powell says inflation easing, but warns of a reversal. This little tool I've got here that's up right now, this is the Fed Watch tool, and we use this to look forward, and I'll explain that a little bit down here. But I'm just kind of, we're going to be looking at what happened today, and this is what changed for this next meeting here. So Fed's Powell said inflation has started to come down, but added the Fed would raise interest rates more aggressively if the data showed that trend reversing. In today's interview at the Economic Club in Washington, Powell explained that the message he and other policymakers were sending after their meeting last week was that, quote, the disinflationary process, the process of getting inflation down, has begun, end quote. Powell noted that he expects prices to drop substantially this year, although it will take until about next year to get inflation close to that Fed's 2% target. He indicated that greater than expected increase in job numbers last month, quote, shows why we think this process will take a significant period of time, unquote. So yeah, higher rates, question mark. I don't, Powell pointed out that while the Fed believes inflation will keep falling, if economic data does continue to come in stronger than anticipated, the committee would, quote, certainly raise rates more, end quote. The Fed began increasing rates last March, if you guys remember, as annual inflation reached 4-decade highs. In its most recent session, policymakers lifted them another 25 BPS to a range of 4.5% to 4.75%, and said additional hikes would be necessary. So following Powell's talk here today, this tool here, this CME Group Fed Watch tool, indicated that the probability of another 25 BP rise at next month's Fed meeting dropped to 90.8%, while the odds of a 50 BP jump went up to 9.2%. I can leave a link to this, and when it gets closer again, I can show you guys kind of how we use this and how we look through these dates and can watch the probability. The thing that's nice about this is you kind of have a heads up to what they're thinking and where the sentiment lies. Not that it's very, Super Bowl tradable or anything quite like that, but it does come in handy to kind of understand just how these things, how these things actually work. One of the next big talks today was going to be Microsoft using ChatGPT technology in Bing upgrade. So essentially, the battle of the chatbots is fully underway here. Microsoft did have a nice big, pre-market move up, and they jumped pretty high as they announced that they were going to use this technology in its Bing search engine, as well as the Edge browser. They explained that features are powered by an updated version of the AI language model in ChatGPT, which is a good thing because it's kind of outdated, which was developed by OpenAI. And then last month, Microsoft made a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar investment in OpenAI to extend their partnership. They explained the features are powered by that updated version, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on in there. And then I can never say his name right, but CEO Satya Nadella explained that the new AI-powered Bing allows users to get answers to questions with an assortment of contexts similar to what ChatGPT can do. It offers interactive chat and can also generate content. We've seen people using it for college papers and for writing all sorts of different things. Nadella called it, quote, a new day in search. The race starts today and we're going to move fast, unquote. However, though, as we've been talking about in the chat over the last few days and here, Microsoft is hardly alone in this race. So some of the new competition coming in, that we knew they were going to hear. So earlier today, Baidu, last night, which by the way is the largest Chinese search engine, they said that they were planning to release its own chatbot next month called the Ernie Bot. And then that follows this week's blog post by Alphabet CEO, who introduced Alphabet's version named Bard. So the news helped lift Microsoft about 4% on the day there. You can see that was the daily. This is a comparison chart of the three there, Baidu, Google, and Microsoft. But it helped move Microsoft 4%, and then making it the best performing stock in the Dow today. So we'll keep that on top of our as we move forward. That's going to be something that people are definitely going to be talking about. So speaking of top, take a look at these top and bottom performers here. Also of note, obviously, today was the move in Boeing as they jumped more than 3% after the announcement that they too will join the list of mega companies laying off swaths of workforce, which in this case, they're saying it's to cut about 2,000 white collar jobs. Some of the other notable movers were Oak Street Health. They soared like 30% on a report that CVS is close to a $10.5 billion takeover of their primary care center. Skyworks was just skyrocketing, no pun intended, as several analysts raised their price targets following the chipmaker's earnings report. There were better than expected profits from DuPont, that's DD, lifted their shares. Shares rose for video game makers Take-Two, Activision after financial reports. And then on the loser side, Verizon actually was the worst performing stock of the Dow today. Some of the other ones that got hit today were the meme stocks dropped sharply. It was a brutal day for investors that were in Bed Bath & Beyond, with shares losing, it was nearly like half of their value after the retailer, they're facing bankruptcy, and they said it was looking to raise more than $1 billion selling preferred securities and warrants. And that's never what you want to see there. So we can see some of the Royal Caribbean was up there 7%. Semiconductors are up 6.38. Yeah, so pretty good day as far as, looking all over. Some of the other moves that we saw today. So we saw this nice move in oil today. Oil futures surged about 4% there from bottom to top. You can see here on this intraday chart here. What we were watching very tight today, obviously, was gold. Gold prices climbed, had a nice little move there. Nothing too crazy, but you can see that big move down over the last several days. So this little price acceptance here, what we want to watch for now is going to be the reaction in gold. Is it going to go higher and reclaim all that broken structure? Or are we going to still see this trend to continue to downside? The US dollar was up against the euro, but it did fall versus the pound and the yen. You can see the downside channel there we're watching on the daily. This is the intraday on the dollar here that we're watching, so keep an eye on that. We watched the dollar overnight as it moves against the foreign currencies. So it was an interesting day on the dollar. The dollar led us on the way up and on the way back down today, along with internal. So it was really nice to have that in there. And then, of course, last but not least, we can take a look at these crypto names. Cryptocurrencies, most of the decent ones that matter, they traded higher today. We're not in anything right now, but we have been watching this move in Bitcoin. After hours, it did pop up a little bit. It's only up about, futures are up about 0.24% here. Ethereum kind of hanging in right around that same area. Ethereum up a little bit higher after hours today, but we'll see how long that can actually last. Obviously, I'm not going to get too gung-ho about chasing this move in the old the cryptocurrencies until we get closer to the weekend. There's a lot more going on right now, so it's not something that we necessarily have to get too much into. But let's take a look at the recap for the day. So yesterday, and specifically last night, we talked about how markets have been in this unequivocal buy the dip regime broadly since the October low, which is back down here. But when the new uptrend was born, but more accurately since the start of this year, where every dip has been reliably bought in no more than 3 days. We talked about this a bunch today, typically much less. This was yet again true today with all these intraday dips being bought. Let's drop down to the 15-minute real quick. Yeah, so you can see all of these dips continue to be bought. And this was the Powell meeting, right? And then we got that rip new higher there. We alerted to the probability that we were very likely to continue to fill out that major bull flag here. Let's back out to the 4. So, of course, everybody knows, watching this bull flag, right? So we talked about the chances of that. But we wanted to see that bull flag structure continue to fill out, which has that 41.75 resistance and then the 41.10 to 40.90.95 supports. That played out absolutely perfectly today, spiking from this 41.10 in the morning. Then we went all the way to almost nearly tagging our 41.75, almost exactly as we could have asked for, to the tick, back down to 40.95, then rallied into the end of the session, right back to the resistance of that flag. The key here, though, is this bull flag, and ES has been building a sideways flag pattern for nearly a week now. And this is what we've been watching every single day. I mean, it doesn't get any prettier than that, boys. It really doesn't. So yeah, a move was, and it certainly is still to come here. Despite the volatility, though, our lean from yesterday played out quite well to fill out this super clean bull flag. And we're looking for a rally to resistance, then to dip to fill out. And this just demonstrates the power of a simple, clean structure to define the range for the day. You can easily draw this out by connecting that Wednesday, the February 1st low with yesterday's low, and then just finish it off by creating a parallel with last week's FOMC high to snap your lines in place. Like, truly a beautiful, beautiful flag here that we got to play and made us some good money today. But speaking of the idea of volatility, today was a very volatile session. Not going to deny that by any means. But, you know, it wasn't overly surprising after 2 days of brutal chop. And as we continue to point out here daily, markets alternate between compression, expansion, chop mode, and trend mode. Today was also a good example of what we frequently repeat in chat about the idea that bulls lose, bears lose, and how really only tactical traders ultimately make money, at least on a day-to-day, intraday swing trading time frame. After trading nearly a full 24-hour candles, literally 24-hour candles in a row sideways, we started the session with 3 hours of intense chop between that 41.10 and 41.30. We spiked to the 41.70s. Let's go ahead and grab this, and I'll draw it out so you guys can see it as I go through. I think it helps to see it on the price path. Yeah. So there we popped up. We spiked huge up into that 41.70s. We sold off all the way back down into this 40.90.95 area there. And then we essentially just spiked right back up into our 41.75 target zone, where we finished our day there. And, you know, nobody is going to predict this type of action in advance, nor will anyone with any type of embedded bias trade it successfully. Only reactive, level-to-level day traders can, and this is true almost all days in these current conditions. Also, though, to note on a day like today, there are hundreds of possible ways to trade this action and no, quote, right way. But the basic principle, though, is that you will never catch all of it. No trader does, and no edge can. But in the end, the goal is to catch some solid points when you have a setup, and that setup meets preparation and dedication. Big picture, though, probability as well as our lean, you know, it remains unchanged from what it has been essentially for the past week here. Flag support now is that 40.85 to 90. Flag resistance remains in that 41.75, 80-ish. And the breakout ultimately targets a move up our key levels above here to break out back into that gravity point at 42.11. So it'd be 42.05, 42.11, 42.31 gravity points. 42.55, 60s where I would be taking off quite a bit of my exposure. And remember, though, everything in this flag is just tactical chop from this point until we break out or break down. And so far, we're trying to break out of it here. And after hours, it's holding up decently, you know, so far. But it is tactical chop if we get back inside of there. We need to stay above here and cool off for a few days to get that move. We closed directly under that key resistance, but it is quite possible we continue to fill this out more. And given the big run today right into resistance, instead of speculating on the exact path, we will continue to trade this as we go, you know, level to level, one move at a time, reacting to the levels. There's no reason to get sloppy or greedy at this point. There are plenty of points and plenty of moves ahead. We just want to watch these triggers. We know exactly where we need to be for this to fall back in here to fill it out. Or if we can just cool off and consolidate down here for a couple days, then we can really make a nice rip back towards those new highs, those new swing highs, and potentially take us off much, much higher. So I'm going to leave it there. Don't want to make these too long. We'll be up pre-market to go through the overnight conditions and see what has been moving and what hasn't. Other than that, yeah, good work today, boys. And let's watch the overnight session here, and then we'll get on pre-market and we'll get some things done. Have a good night, boys. Cheers.